Ever wonder how an entire galaxy stays at peace? Meet the vermiculons. These bipedal, compound-eyed beings are the unsung heroes of the Milky Way, the galaxy's official peacemakers. Whenever two alien species have a beef, no matter how big or small, they turn to the vermiculons for arbitration. These masters of diplomacy work out a fair deal for everyone involved, preventing all-out war. But it wasn't always this peaceful. Eons ago, the Milky Way was a constant battlefield. Alien races would declare total war over the smallest disputes. A ship straying into the wrong territory, a colony getting raided, you name it. The older, more powerful races just didn't care. They'd let the younger species, even undeveloped ones like us humans, get caught in the crossfire. It was a chaotic, brutal time until the vermiculons stepped in and changed everything. For decades, we humans looked up at the stars and imagined a galaxy filled with wise ancient beings ready to guide us. We theorized that the older a species was, the wiser it must be. Boy, were we wrong. It turns out, age just means you're old, not necessarily smart. Instead of benevolent guides, the galaxy is crawling with petty, squabbling alien species. They love abducting humans for bizarre tests and grabbing whatever they want, whenever they can. It's less wise elders and more like a cosmic high school cafeteria full of bullies. It's actually kind of sad and pathetic when you think about it. But there's hope. Some of the younger races, like the vermiculons, are getting tired of all the fighting and stealing. They're forming alliances, sharing resources and ideas, and banding together to push back against the galactic jerks. A new dawn might just be breaking. In the vast expanse of the Milky Way, there wasn't one grand council, but a loose coalition of species united by a common goal. Of course, even allies have their squabbles. That's where the vermiculons came in. They stepped up, acting as arbiters, listening to both sides and crafting clever agreements that benefited everyone and kept the peace. This alliance wasn't just about diplomacy. It was a military pact. They shared technology and forces, creating a formidable power that even the older, more established races had to respect. When pirates from outside the coalition tried their luck, they were swiftly crushed. But this new power dynamic had an unintended consequence. The races who couldn't challenge the coalition turned their hungry eyes toward less developed worlds like ours. They saw Earth and other young civilizations as easy targets, ripe for the picking, knowing we couldn't possibly defend ourselves against their advanced might. A powerful interstellar coalition was basically forced to sign a treaty. The main clause? To protect the lesser developed species sprinkled throughout the Milky Way. And guess who's on that list? Yep, us, humans. We're the new kids on the block, only about 100 years into deep space travel. Our big breakthrough came a few decades ago with the jump drive. But here's the catch. It's not as simple as just pointing and jumping. To make a clean, flawless jump, our ships have to deploy a network of satellite comm stations first. These little satellites are crucial. They record real-time spatial data, open up a tiny, artificial wormhole, and zip that data back to Central Command. From there, Command uploads the fresh jump data to the entire fleet. It's a complex, delicate dance, but it's our ticket to the stars. Ever wondered how humanity explores the vast unknown of space? Official data takes about an hour to reach every ship in the fleet. But some captains don't wait. They're called wildcatters, and they make blind jumps into systems with no data whatsoever. It's incredibly dangerous. They risk jumping straight into a star, materializing inside an asteroid, or getting lost in a gas giant. But the rewards? They're the ones discovering priceless new resources, rare materials, and even finding long-lost derelict spacecraft from forgotten eras. These explorers are some of the wealthiest people in the galaxy, carrying on a tradition of high-risk, high-reward exploration. They search systems that others deem worthless, but often find the most valuable resources for Earth. And they're not totally alone. A massive network of patrol fleets, complete with battle cruisers and support ships, is always just a call away, ready to jump in if a wildcatter finds trouble. The bridge of the starship Ever Vigilant was eerily quiet, the only light coming from the humming consoles. Captain Mark Thomas stared out at the void, his reflection a ghost in the viewport. Where a star should have blazed, there was only a pulsating scar of radiation. Where planets should have orbited, there were just drifting continents of rock and shattered debris. Navigation status report. Where in the cosmos are we? Thomas's voice was low, cutting through the silence. The navigator's fingers danced across his console, his face growing pale. Sir ... According to the charts, this system is dead. He paused, swallowing hard. Records are sparse, but they mention a catastrophic war. They say the star went supernova prematurely. It took everything with it. A chilling silence fell over the bridge again. They weren't just in a dead system. They were floating in a tomb, a testament to a war that had literally extinguished the sun. Ooh, gamma radiation, and other exotic stuff I don't even want to think about. The captain grumbled, running a hand over his tired face. Okay, fine. This is a dead system, but let's give it a quick look. The bridge crew acknowledged his order with practiced efficiency. Plot the next jump, he commanded, looking over at navigation. As the crew got to work, he sank into his command chair, bringing a steaming mug to his lips. He took a long, slow sip, savoring the rich, dark liquid. Real coffee. The first he'd had in over a year. He'd been living off that synth coffee garbage vile concoction that tasted like gritty, bitter sock water. This was pure luxury, a secret stash hidden from the rest of the crew. It was a small comfort, but out here in the deep black, small comforts were everything. The vast emptiness of this shattered solar system was starting to get to us. We were just cautiously weaving through what used to be planets, now just a graveyard of asteroid fragments. Honestly, hope was running thin. Then, a flicker on the tactical scanner. Hey, you see anything over there? I called out to the passive scanner operator. Nothing on my end, he replied, his voice flat with boredom. But I couldn't shake it. I kept my scope trained on that dark patch of space. Another flicker. This time, the computer identified a possible spacecraft. Before I could even shout, the passive scanner operator yelled, "Got something." The captain leaned forward in his command chair. "What is it?" he demanded. "Hard to tell with all this radiation," my colleague said, eyes glued to his screen. "But it looks like a derelict ship." The captain sank back, a slow grin spreading across his face. "A ship, huh?" he murmured. "I wonder what kind of riches might be on board. Helm, turn 156 degrees and make your heading for that ship." The helm acknowledged and began turning the ship hard aport. As the turn started, the ship groaned under the strain, all the weight inside leaning heavily to that side. Then the helm began to straighten up the ship, flying straight for that scanner hit. The captain ordered tactical and passive to keep scanning the system, warning that this could be a pirate trap. Tactical, weapons hot. Helm, slow ahead can keep us away from these rocks. The helm reported back, all ahead slow, but at this speed, I'm having trouble maneuvering around these rocks. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut with a knife, as everyone held their breath, waiting for what would happen next. The captain gave a terse nod. Understood. Do your best. Every single one of these rocks could be hiding a trap. The helm operator replied, acknowledging the order. You could see the sweat beading on his forehead as he worked furiously, weaving the ship through the treacherous field of floating debris. He was slowly, painstakingly, closing in on the scanner target. Finally, after several minutes of intense maneuvering, the helm reported the target was dead ahead. The captain leaned forward in his command chair and ordered "Front viewer" on screen. There, Suspended in the void between two colossal asteroids was a ship, a massive, unknown vessel. The captain leaned even further forward, his voice a mix of awe and suspicion. "What kind of ship is that?" No one had an answer. He ordered a slow, low-altitude flyby, instructing the crew to keep scanning it. He glanced at the tactical officer. "Keep your finger on the trigger." Everyone acknowledged as they began their cautious approach. The tactical officer then spoke up, his voice tense. "Captain, this ship, it's creating its own gravity field. It's using these asteroids as camouflage and keeping them from crashing into its hull." The buzz spread through the ship like wildfire. Everyone wanted a glimpse of the anomaly on the main screen, so a crowd started to form on the bridge. The captain, clearly annoyed, barked an order. "Bridge crew only. Everyone else out." Now the onlookers scrambled away, and he commanded the helm to halt the ship. He wanted a better look at the vessel parked in front of us. As we drifted to a stop, everyone on the bridge just stared, mouths agape. "Captain," the helm officer whispered, "we could park our entire ship inside one of those engine bells." All the captain could do was nod slowly. "In all my years," he finally said, his voice full of awe, "I've never seen engines like that." He called the chief engineer, who arrived moments later. "What are we looking at?" the chief asked. The captain just pointed. The chief's eyes went wide. "No," he breathed, stepping closer to the screen. "Even our largest dreadnoughts. Nothing comes close to that size." He stared in astonishment at the view screen, his eyes wide. "Captain, what in the world are we looking at?" The captain, calm and collected, replied simply, "A ship." From behind him, a chief engineer sputtered, "No, no way. That's impossible. A vessel that size would need a power core the size of a small star. It could swallow Earth whole." The captain just pointed a steady finger at the screen. "And yet, here it is, right in front of us." The engineer was utterly speechless. "Any life signs?" The captain asked the bridge. Both scanners reported negative. The captain rose from his chair, walked over to the stunned engineer, and clapped him on the shoulder. "Okay, boarding party. I need engineering, linguistics, medical, security. The whole show. Find an airlock so we can dock. We're going in." A wave of hesitation washed over the crew, but no one argued. The chief engineer just shook his head, a look of disbelief on his face as he walked off the bridge. Our scanners finally picked up a docking seal, but there's a problem. The seal is massive, way too big for our ship's port. I called the chief engineer back to the bridge, but while waiting, I ordered my crew to get precise measurements of that oversized port. A few minutes later, the chief walks onto the bridge, and what do I see? He's holding a real cup of coffee. I walked over, a bit surprised, and said, "Chief, I see you have a cup in your hand." He just nodded. I had to ask, "Where did you get that from?" He just smiled and said, "Oh, Captain, do you really think you're the only one with a stash of real coffee aboard this ship?" I couldn't help but laugh. "No," I said, "I guess not. Even in the deepest reaches of space, you can't hide a good cup of coffee." The chief leaned in close to the captain. "That last haul we got paid for?" The captain nodded. "Well," the chief continued, "I took part of my pay and bought an entire pallet of coffee. It should last us 2 Earth years." A huge smile spread across the captain's face. Real coffee, any time he wanted. The chief took another sip from his mug and glanced back at the measurements on his screen. "All right, I'm going to have to build a new collar for one of the pods. There's no way we're getting this ship docked with that one." The captain thanked him. "How long?" he asked. The chief just shrugged. "A couple of hours." Then he added, "Why don't you come down to engineering? I've got something to show you." The captain knew exactly what he meant from the undertone in his voice. He smiled and agreed, while everyone else on the bridge pretended not to hear a thing. The anticipation was killing him. For what felt like an eternity, the captain's gaze was locked on his empty coffee cup, perched tauntingly on the armrest of his command chair. He couldn't take it anymore. He stood up, strode off the bridge, and made a beeline for engineering. The only thing on his mind was the rich aroma, the comforting warmth of a fresh, steaming cup of coffee. When he arrived, the chief engineer was busy at work, modifying a docking collar. The chief looked up, a knowing glint in his eye. "Ah, you're here for the coffee, huh?" The captain grinned sheepishly. "Keep this on the down low," he whispered. The chief chuckled. "Captain, they already know. How do you think I got a whole pallet of it on board?" "I'm too old to haul that myself." The captain laughed heartily. "You may be old, my friend, but you are very wise." The chief just smiled. The captain walked out of engineering, turning back to thank the chief for the fresh cup of coffee. As the chief returned to his work, the captain headed back to the bridge, sipping the hot liquid. A comforting calm settled over him as real caffeine, not the synthetic stuff, coursed through his system. The sweet, rich aroma of the coffee was a small luxury in the vastness of space. He finally reached the bridge and settled into his command chair, taking another thoughtful sip. Just then, a notification chimed. The boarding team was ready, their equipment prepped and checked. The captain acknowledged their readiness and ordered them to stow their gear aboard the boarding pod immediately. He didn't want them getting in the way while the engineering team mounted the new docking collar. Time was critical, and every moment counted. The crew buzzed with activity, preparing to board the mysterious ship. Anticipation was electric. For some, it was the thrill of the unknown. For others, it was the thought of salvage. Under Earth law, a derelict ship with no life aboard is fair game. Whatever treasures or tech it held could be theirs. The chief engineer put the final touches on the docking collar, and it was quickly attached to the exploration pod. The moment had arrived. The boarding party loaded up, and the captain launched the pod before returning to the bridge. The bridge crew maintained constant contact as the small craft journeyed across the void. Minutes later, the pod reached the silent giant. Docking procedures began, connecting to an external airlock. It took a while to get an airtight seal. Finally, the chief engineer cracked the outer door. A hiss of escaping air confirmed a vacuum on the other side, pulling the pod's atmosphere into the dark, silent vessel. For a second, it was just unnerving. Then we were walking into a pitch-black corridor. We flicked on our flashlights, beams cutting through the darkness. Up and down the hall, we saw multiple closed doors. The captain, watching through our helmet cams, ordered us to proceed. He told the engineering team to find the engine room and get the power back on. The chief engineer acknowledged, and his team headed toward the aft of the ship. The captain then ordered the rest of us to find the bridge and get its systems running. Cautiously, we continued down the corridor until we stumbled across a stairwell. I'd never seen anything like it on a spacecraft. Every landing had an airtight door we had to force open. It was slow going, but after an hour, we finally found the command deck and proceeded down the hall. What would we find next? The chief engineer and his team stepped into the engineering bay and just stopped. Their jaws practically hit the floor. The components hummed with an otherworldly energy, sleek and impossibly advanced. It was like stepping 1,000 years into the future. The chief engineer ran a hand over a glowing console, his eyes wide with disbelief. He whispered to himself, "How long has this ship been here?" Suddenly, a voice echoed through the vast chamber, clear as a bell. "I am 1,000 years old." The engineer spun around, his heart pounding in his chest. His team looked just as startled, searching the empty room. "Who said that? Show yourself," he demanded, his voice trembling slightly. The voice, calm and serene, replied simply, "It is me." The chief engineer, now thoroughly confused, and a little freaked out, scanned the machinery again. Me? Who? He asked, staring into the heart of the great machine. A voice echoed through the bridge. I am the ship. The chief engineer stumbled back, his eyes wide. You're alive? A living ship? Before he could finish, the voice cut in, its tone calm and steady. No, I am not alive as you understand it. I am an artificial intelligence. I was wondering when you would arrive. The engineer shook his head in disbelief. When I would arrive? How could you possibly know I was coming? And who made you? We haven't perfected AI like this yet. There was a brief pause before the ship responded, its voice resonating with an ancient quality. Humanity constructed me 1,000 years ago. The chief let out a short, incredulous laugh. That's impossible. 1,000 years ago, we were just beginning to master flight. The ship's silence that followed was more profound than any words it could have spoken. Still dreaming of what might be out here in space, huh? This is impossible. Who are you? Show yourself right now. We have dozens of people here, and if you don't come out, you will be in serious trouble. No, you are lying. There are only 18 of you aboard this vessel, and I can't show myself because I don't have a physical form. Now, would you like to listen to what I have to say? The chief hesitated for a moment, then replied, sure, okay. The AI then told him to have a seat, and she would explain everything. What could this mysterious AI want? Find out in the next episode. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Phantom Static, where the phantoms speak through the static.